Hello, welcome back to the Double Swing. We have a special guest with us, seeing as Yumi has decided to go on holiday. As we said last episode, he's off partying, hookers, blow, all the shebang. He's off having the time of his life, or visiting family, depends on who you believe. Instead, replacing him is Maui, who is going to be doing his best impression of Yumi, although the one key part that's missing is Votus Pro. You can't pick them, so you can't really do the full impersonation. But instead, I'm sure you'll have a lot of very tasty options to go and pick and miss with. Last episode, we did stage 1 of Cologne. It went pretty horribly. For Yumi, not for myself. Tyloo, FlyQuest, and Bait all missing stage 2. Tyloo the big surprise, although realistically, yeah, consistency was never their king. Their main ability, their main power. And then for myself, yes, Complexity missed. That was a bit of a reach, taking a team who was playing my favourite in the first round. But GamerLegion, Astralis, and NIP all managed to make their way through to stage 2. Some really interesting teams there, still in the underdogs. And the viewers, represented by Beatrams. I didn't say it. He left a comment. He was talking to me on Twitter about the show, and I was like, do you want to just be the viewers? And he was like, okay. So I told him to leave a comment, and he did you well. He picked FaZe, he picked NIP, got you the full 4 points, so congratulations, your
Nice.
representation has performed as you hoped. And yeah, let's get straight into this one. Maui, thanks for filling in. I know you've been co-streaming stage 1. Who was your big shock, big surprise of this this opening stage?
The immediate big shock is how bad Snow can possibly play. Didn't think he had it in him. But no, after he had that horrendous first map on Nuke, he said, I got one more in me, and one-upped himself on Inferno. So that's probably my big surprise. I would say that it was probably more surprises in the negative direction than the positive direction. You had more of the likely favorites making it through in FaZe. I would even put GamerLegion up there nowadays, and
Me too.
Furia, I think. And I would say Astralis were kind of, no, they showed enough lately. And I just don't see how this roster could possibly be as bad as they were, as consistently as they were last season. I don't know. I don't know. Positive, positive teams. Maybe that I wasn't sure about Grix, if I'm being honest. I watched. I had a very small sample size of what I had watched from him, but it felt a little noob stompy for me. Maybe it still is. I mean, they only
Hmm.
did beat MIBR and VP. I wonder how he's going to be a bit against the higher level opposition, but he did. He definitely did well against those.
Yeah, he's a bit of a question mark for some people. I mean, I've watched a good amount of him, and I remember the transition from Aurora Youngblood to being Aurora to being Astrum. We kind of saw him go from playing on a team that was a pure dumpster fire as far as principles. Like, principled CS was not played on Aurora Youngblood. It was chaos, and then he would combat AWP his way to victory. He did pick up, some structure. His team got slightly better around him, and eventually he was playing a bit more conventionally as an AWPer by the end. And if you could see some of those things, like the working the picks, playing in the mid round, looking for those cheeky lines, like he was getting a bit more conventional towards the end. But no, it did. If you only watched the very early days, man, you had no idea how he'd play at the high level because it was ugly. It was really ugly.
Yeah, I felt like the things that he was doing would be just punished. Like, it's kind of what every North American tier 2 follower gets with Junior, where you just see, yeah, he's getting a lot of kills, but this is in a probably mostly because of the lack of a system of the teams he's playing against.
Hmm.
And I felt like I got some of that when I watched him, like just kind of that tier 2.5, tier 2 area of European CS. Yeah, it's better than it was years ago, but still, you're getting flashed at a much lower rate. The
Hmm.
utility is not pushing you off nearly as many angles as it will when you're playing top down.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, as I always say, when I'm trying to be constructive of North American talents, it's like, what about when they get flashed? That's always the question. Like, are they flashbang allergic or are they flashbang resistant? If they're able to perform still when they face European util, they're going to be good. And that's kind of been the key problem with a lot of these rising riflers, especially. But yeah, historically, Junior was the great example. But let's get straight into this one then. You have the first pick. You have the full board at your disposal. You can take whoever you want to open up the show.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this one it's too clean not to pick it, okay? I know we're coming off of a player break, things can change. They just got a gambling sponsor, so I'm sure they're rolling in dough, but I don't see any world where Vitality is a bad pick here. I know that you get the -1 point or teams that are in the favorites, but these guys seem like such bona fide favorites that if they do anything worse than a grand final finish, it's a massive surprise. And really, anything but first place is going to be a surprise. So, what would that be? Would I get 3 points for that if they win the whole thing?
Yeah, if
So,
they go on to win it, they're 3 points. It's as good as it gets, really. Yeah.
so I'm taking 3 points. I'm taking Vitality.
Yeah, it should be free, right? Given everything we've seen, given how they've played. I mean, you saw it today. The stat compiled by B-Trams in terms of maps won when that player's sub 1.0 rated. 4 Vitality players, I think, were on there. Maybe I think 4 of the 5 were in the top sort of 6, 7
everybody
area.
but Apex. Yeah.
Incredible,
Yeah.
just how they played.
I mean that was something that I forgot how I came up with it. Probably something that spurred me in chat, but I was basically saying, can you put this together, B-Trams? Because it was mostly comparing lurkers and versus entry fraggers. Like entry fraggers like Donk, when they do well, I was comparing Flamesy actually at one point to Rops too. It's just that when you see Flamesy with a very high rating, you know that Vitality won that game convincingly. But if it's Rops, sometimes Rops's stats are agnostic of whether his team is winning or losing, which is something you saw a lot in 2020, 2021, pre-phase era Rops when he was on Mouse Sports, and really just lurkers in general. You can get really good stats on your side of the map, but you only can dictate so much, whereas action with the pack, entries with the group are always going to be felt in the whole as you're really dictating what's to come next in the round.
Yeah, that inability, because you're the lurker, there's no one there to trade you. So you go 1-for-1, that's the end of it. The entry fragger goes 1-for-1, then the next player comes along and trades him. All of a sudden, that's maybe the entire B site down. CT save round 1. It's a very critical difference. Yeah. So Vitality, they're just spoiled, really. They have this sort of luxury of just being able to lean on a variety of different players, play a very wide variety of different styles. I mean, I've never seen, as I've put it in a dozen shows now, because I saw it once and now I can't get it out of my head. I've never seen a star AWPer pick up a rifle and anchor a bomb site just because he could. There was nothing forced him to do this. He just chose to do it and then got a double kill. It's something that no other caller really has access to. No one can change up their positions to that extreme, like, of a level and still expect to win rounds. Like, that's just insane.
The versatility on Vitality is unmatched with every team. I feel like the roles are nicely set, but as you've mentioned, even when players are in situations where Rops needs to create, that Apex needs to clutch, that Flames needs to play a late round next to somebody else like Mezzy, I don't see any duo or trio in a mid-late round situation where I count them out entirely. Everybody is capable of just flipping a switch, saying to themselves, now I need to be the proactive one. They all recognize win conditions in the moment so readily, which no other team can possibly do. You look at even Falcons, and I guess we'll see what happens for them in the upcoming season. But, in terms of opening up a round or something like when was Magisk ever doing it? That, I mean, you even look at some of the prime teams of years in the past, and even Zipnik's on a prime Astralis, he really wouldn't. He's not going to look for the 2K entry just because the team needs it. He still wants to slow the game down to the pace, and that might be at the cost of a round for Astralis, but they would get it done at the end, of course.
Yeah, they were a very different roster. Although I think this sort of stat that we were talking about kind of reignites that ultimate debate for the year. It's going to be going from start to finish. I remember we kind of touched on, like, at the halfway point of the year, who kind of the player of the year is. Talked about how, probably have ZywOo, but, we'll see for the rest of the 6 months. Donk's crazy fragging numbers, unprecedented, unmatched in all of CS history. And then we get a stat like that one, where if Donk isn't playing on his best, like some of his best Counter-Strike, Spirit simply cannot win. Like, if he has a bad map, it's lost. How much does that sort of change your view on the player? Did you already have Donk at number 1, or was that something that maybe had some influence later?
See, the sane approach to making a top 20 list, which I did after Austin, was to have ZywOo at number 1. He's won the most MVPs. His team's won the most tournaments by far. He is smurfing on practically every team in the world. But it's, to me, when I really watch Vitality, what I see more, and ZywOo fans can hate me all I want for this, but it does really still feel like a win by committee. But that committee is just exceedingly strong in every single position. I'm not downplaying ZywOo's greatness when I say this stuff, but some of his fans do want it to be ZywOo versus the world, one man wrecking crew, when that couldn't be further from the truth. He's got the best lineup we have ever seen in CS2, maybe even modern Counter-Strike, everything CS:GO and after that, where you don't have to get that all too much out of him. I mean, to win the grand final when he's the fourth highest rated player and their IGL is the highest rated player, I mean, you're getting like this is not possible with Donk. It's not possible. Like the level of carry is so much greater for Donk. And yes, I made my list and I went for the sane approach and route to put ZywOo at number 1, but I almost think that I might be doing a disservice to the greatness of Donk here in what could be the making of the best player we've ever seen in Counter-Strike. I don't like this could be a Michael Jordan level figure that we're finally getting where his numbers just don't even make sense. You look at him and yeah, the rating at the end of the day for ZywOo is usually quite high, but the KPR, the ADR, all of these kind of numbers for Donk, something that's not algorithmic, that is just purely output in the server. Donk is just he's putting everybody else to shame. The only reason that he has a bad rating, again, this is a stat created by humans. It's not actually really just pure output of the server. The rating created by an algorithm is not as always jumping out over ZywOo, but the KPR and the damage per round definitely are.
Yeah, that's going to be the key conversation at the end of the year. Because the reason I'm assuming you had similar logic as well, beyond just the MVPs, because I tend to ignore those to a certain amount. Like, there's a certain amount of it that gets just, for me, it's like, cool, your team won every event. Naturally, the star player got a bunch of MVPs. But more importantly, it's like, in every single playoff match, every opponent they face, you get that incredible ZywOo output. There's no falling off, there's no stumble. There is on the Donk side. That's kind of where you have to be like, the output's insane, but it drops to an almost human degree when we get to the playoffs, we get to the big stages, and we play the best opponents. So I kind of have to rationalize and be like, ZywOo's this year just a straight line, no matter what the context, the stats you throw on there. And it doesn't matter if it's arena rating, playoff rating, versus the top 5, versus the top 10. It's all insane. So, yeah, this is a rampant vitality. You've got the freest pick at number 1. It's actually so free that when I'm picking, I'm not even going to touch a favorite yet. I'm going to go straight to the underdogs because there is no more value to be had in the favorites. Everyone else kind of is a bit of a crapshoot. I just need an underdog team to make it into the playoffs. And I think for me this year, hell, it's not been the greatest year, and I've not even been that big a fan of some of the signings. But I still have to believe in Ash. Even if I'm not a big Kyousuke guy. I'm not a big Kyousuke guy. I saw the rumors first when they came out, and I'm like, I've been watching this guy on Gen 1. I've seen him play for a variety of French mixes, and he always gets his stats. Like, as far as consistency, which is something Ash has reiterated, like in interviews with myself and talking on his own channel about players, he loves consistency. And you see that in Kyousuke's numbers across all rosters, across all time periods. He's a 1.13 to 1.15 kind of rated guy. That rating does not really dip very far and doesn't climb that much higher either. He's good on an AWP. He's good on a rifle. He's not bad on a pistol. You can do a lot of stuff pretty well. And so, whilst I did think it's pretty hard for it to not be an upgrade of a Slend, given how poor Slend's form was, I just felt it was a bit of a weird pick. All that being said, I had very similar reservations about Towson. Towson to me was like another one of those guys. Like, there's 100 of them. They play on Danish rosters. They're decent decision-making, not particularly flashy, acceptable riflers. I just thought it'd be a whatever move. Well, turns out, he's not just a good decision maker, he's one of the best. He does everything right. He's constantly in the right places, and he can hit some pretty great shots. Like, he's no PR, he's no res, but he's still hitting his shots when he's needed. And so I think if Kyousuke turns out to be another one of those cases where I've just doubted Ash's scouting and he proves me wrong, fantastic. Even if it's not true, I still think he has this insane rifle duo, great calling and structure, everything you could want for a team to go and make these sorts of upsets happen. I think he's got it at his disposal, and he's great at maximizing, quite bluntly, shitty pieces. We've seen what he can do with good ones.
I was thinking about GamerLegion just kind of from a fantasy perspective, also just thinking about the players and if I want to pick them, I feel like some of them are undervalued on that side of things. But for this, I couldn't really put that much faith into them just because opening matchup versus Falcons, I think that's a doozy. And then that lower bracket in what's going on in Group A, man, you're facing. I think the first round matchup probably going to be 3D Max, but my teams for Group A definitely differ from GamerLegion. Okay, there's a couple rosters there that I find to be a bit stronger, coming out with a little bit more force. And I watched Kersey also. I think you watched him on Ancient recently. I watched him actually on Nuke. I even was gonna pull up a Kersey demo on stream maybe a week ago, and somebody told me you were looking at you. Someone said they just watched you review his demo on Ancient, so I was like, oh, I was gonna pick that one. So then I went for a demo of him on Nuke, and he was just too static for me. He just didn't make as many moves as I would have wanted. It still by the end of the game felt fine. Like he was, I mean, he hit a couple decent shots, but the lack of creation, and probably due to the fact that he's just trying to fit into a system right now, I just didn't feel inspired by it. And I think that somebody that static, and sure, they play their comforts quite well, but don't necessarily go above and beyond. I, that's when I feel the jump up from tier 2 to tier 1 as an opper is very much so felt, where you're predictable, they know where you're going to be, they're already using the basic utility to push off the majority of angles, but then they can target the angles that you want to play even more, create game plans against you because they recognize you as a threat. And I like Rez and PR too, but I don't see them as people that are going to match up with Nico and Kyousuke. I don't see them as people that are going to be matching up with even what's going on with Furia, or going on, maybe even going on with the Strauss right now. So I'm not sold on GamerLegion. I get the pick as a whole. I wish they were just in a different bracket. Then I think this would be much stronger. The other bracket, I think they would have a chance. Not this one.
Yeah, I didn't really play the groups that specifically. I didn't even check which group they were in. So I just picked on just my instinct. They've not let me down really most of this year. They've had a
Okay.
couple bomb out events. Obviously, we remember those. We were quite shocked when they happened, but generally they've just been so strong that I just feel really comfortable. If I can get them as an underdog, I'm going to take them. There's two other underdogs that I'm mildly excited to pick, I think, in this sort of group. And then there's a couple others I think are just fine. But I thought, if this is the one I'm the most interested in, I might as well lock them in straight away. Just get me GamerLegion, get me Ash with a bit of time to prepare. Not much, just a little time to prepare. Just a little time. It might be enough to beat Falcons and their new boy. And I use that word literally. He's so young, but man, he's crazy explosive. He's so dynamic. I can't wait to watch Kyousuke. That's the main takeaway of that series. I'm going to be watching it for GameLegion, obviously, fingers crossed, hoping they win. But I'm also just going to be staring every time they switch to Kyosuke's POV. Just watch that crosshair.
Yeah, I know. That's the one that everybody's gonna have. Not even under the magnifying glass, but the microscope. You're just gonna. I can't wait to see that matchup tomorrow. Actually, that's gonna be a good one. I could go for my underdog pick here, though. I could take
Okay,
that.
sure.
Yeah, I feel like Group A. I really feel like I understand who the top two teams are. So the
Okay.
underdogs, there's kind of a lot of them there. In all honesty, there's kind of a lot of them based off of how you structure this game. I mean, you got Furia, you got Astralis, you picked already GamerLegion, sure, 3D Max is there as well. Even technically G2.
Yeah,
So
G2 are in
they're
the underdog
technically
section.
there has to be an underdog that actually makes it, because there's actually only 3 favorites that make it to that are in Group A, and there's 5 underdogs.
Yeah, there's only
But
3 teams
I
in
just can't.
playoffs. You still need to find a little. You need to wrangle something
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, and I can't. I just can't see it. I just can't see it happening with. I mean, with the Group A teams, I almost feel like the favorites are all gonna make it. It's tough. It's really tough to see Vitality, Falcons, or Mongols failing in that regard. So it takes me naturally to Group B. I mean, there's
Mhm.
technically only 3 underdogs that are available in Group B. There's Liquid, there is NIP, and there's Heroic. Heroic, to me, barely survived by the skin of their teeth in the previous one. I have no faith in them facing off again. and that's too hard of a run. So then I really only have naturally 2 underdogs that I want to pick from of this whole tournament. I have NIP and I have Liquid. And almost purely for the reason that their opening matchup is weaker, I'm taking NIP. I'm actually taking NIP in this one. I feel like Snappy has been in the lab. I think the Kaspersky upgrade over Erasdos is noticeable. He's definitely
Oh,
better.
God, yeah.
He is like way better than Erasdos was already. So I'm like he's carrying them through some of these matchups already. I feel like this is the best underdog pick we've got. They're technically the biggest underdog by HLTV ranking, but this is the tournament for me that's going to change that. This is someone in my chat today also said that this is where you buy the snap. This is the last time to get snappy stock on the low because they're going to start rising. Aurora will be their first victim. They're going to punch in an upper semis finish. I feel like this is a team that can make it to the quarters. I think they're going to get into the quarterfinals of the entire event. Not sure who they're going to play. Doubt it's going to be easy because it's probably going to be one of the 3 favorites from Group A. But yeah, I think they've got what it takes. I think they got the mental, and I don't know. Liquid on the other side, you're facing MOUZ in the like that's an L already for me. Unless MOUZ have just completely taken the whole break off.
I can't. I mean, I'll be honest. When you said you got 2 underdogs you'd actually like were Liquid and NIP, I was like, Liquid? And then I remembered NA brained. Maybe there's some sort of bias still lingering in there that you're like still attached to some reason to that brand. I don't know. I watched some of their games. I was bloody horrified by what happened in stage 1. So no, I do love the NIP pick. And Snappy stock being low should never have happened. I get it. Falcons seem like an unmitigated disaster, but you had, for essentially that entire roster's run with Snappy, you had Sumpius as a decent AWPer, and then one kid with so many off-the-server problems as your firepower right there. It's Boros and Sumpius was the acceptable, tolerable, like star-level players in terms of just raw fragging output that he had for that entire time. So for me, my Snappy stock never really dropped. I just waited for him to get a good team. Like something had to be opened for him, like a door where he can get the right players. He said as much. Honestly, he has openly just said, like, yeah, if I get the opportunity to have a team I build around me, I'll be back at big events. And of course, here he is, straight back. And you're right, this is one of the stronger underdogs. They do have a weaker group. That opening matchup with Aurora looks very winnable. I'm gonna be honest with the way Kaspersky, whatever, it doesn't matter. If he's playing the way he played in stage 1 and stage 2, they'll be swimming in it. Because Wrinkle is a phenom. He's still one of my favorite AWPers to watch. Shush has been a Terminator, online especially, but just all year long. And Snappy's just locked in. Like, he's clearly feeling the game, understanding the best uses for his pieces, and they've just been swimming, just rolling over and over. So, yeah, for me, NIP are a no-brainer as well. They're one of the other teams I wanted. They're, for me, one of the actually good underdog picks that remained. Kind of bummed I didn't get them, but yeah, hopefully this keeps on going. And yeah, I want to see them do the climb, like the full climb, up to that sort of top 15 sort of rank. I've tweeted about this the other day. There's a lot of teams that want to be top 15 right now, and they've built rosters that, in theory, could. I think this NIP roster will actually be one of them.
Yeah. I mean, I think that they really just needed one. They felt like the team when seeing glimpses of them whenever they would punch into a tournament that I would be working at, or even just kind of the rare online glances here and there. They felt like they were one piece away, and maybe they still are one more piece away from being a top 5 or a top 10 team, truly. But the ranking right now, 28th in the world for them? No, they're definitely better than that. I look at some of the other rosters now that are just on the top 20 for HLTV. I think they're better than at least 6 or 7 of these teams. I truly do think they're like if you're telling me today they're not better than 3D Max, I would scoff. I think they're better than 3D Max, and 3D Max are currently ranked 14th, so bare minimum they're around there for me.
Yeah, 3D Max is the kind of team where people will believe they're 14th and better than NIP. When they watch the 1 out of 4 games, they will definitely win against NIP because 3D Max are that team. This year, it just feels like they will win at worst 50% of the matchups they're in. Just in terms of number of times you face them. The more you face them, the more there's a chance they got their gambles right. Maka, saw the right solution, put everyone in the right position, and Lucky got a triple kill spray because the name suits him so well. I watched a POV of his, speaking of things I've watched on stream. Lucky has been egregious. Like, the man is terrible. He's washed, and yet,
But
he's somehow getting all these kills. I'm talking 5-7 running, double dink, and then you're like, oh god, he's gonna get a triple, and he just does. Like, he just picks up the gun, gets another trade kill, catches someone in the back. You're like, I want to give him credit for all the like veteran nuance, like nous type stuff he's doing. Like, he's just great positioning off the shoulder, understanding where he needs to swing and when. But mechanically, he's awful. But he's still there. But that's a complete tangent. I agree with the idea that NIP are one player away. When the 2 Portuguese players were announced, I was dubious. Then I watched them play, and I was mortified. I was like, please, can we get someone in here? And ex-Casper Sky for I was like, could have brought him in for Udrex in my mind. I didn't really care. Just bring him in for someone. And he came in, and obviously he's been smashing it. I still think Udrex is on the chopping block. I'm still not fully satisfied. Like, he has been fulfilling more of a role as far as he's been doing a lot more, like, entrying. He's sacrificial in a way. But I still think they could do better. I think they could find someone else. If you want to keep like trying to nick players off vents, go get Netu or someone. Like, I think there's better players available. But for now, this is definitely a top 15 roster. Just hasn't quite manifested as far as the rankings.
All right. Does that bring us to your next pick?
Yeah, it's back to me, and I'm still going underdogs. I wouldn't have picked this team if they hadn't have just signed basically everyone I liked. And they kind of have been doing that over the last 18 months. And they've been replacing players I really don't like, in some cases, with players I'm a big fan of. So I'm going to pick G2. They started it all off when they acquired one of my favorite prospects in MOUZ off of M80. And I'm like, brilliant. Let's change things up. Let's see how this goes. With the sort of cold calculating openings of Nico and the brute force, like just raw, throw myself out there, MOUZ, like that duo would have been really fun. And now we've, reached a point where they don't feel like a surefire tier 1 roster almost, because of the way they've had to rebuild the sort of brand of the names massively dropping off. We've gone from Monacy to Sampaius. We've gone from Nico to Mattis. Like, these are huge drop-offs in name brand value. But these are still incredibly talented players, and almost all of them still incredibly young. And I've been a huge fan of these guys. Mattis especially was one of my pocket picks when he was on Sampi, profiled him. He goes to Fnatic, and on Fnatic, he is the best rifler on the team. Blame F is great and all, but Mattis is just doing all the damage, wrecking teams, finding all the openings, having all the impact. That was Mattis. If Fnatic win a game, it was off of one of 2 winning conditions. 2/3 of the time, Mattis wrecked things. About 1/3 of the time, Jambo landed. If you've watched a Jambo demo, you'll know exactly what I mean. He is so just high sense flick heavy. When it lands, it looks insane. Watch the demos where he's not over 1.0 rated though, and you're like, yeah, maybe slow the fuck down. This is a bit much, but no. G2 have just revamped their roster in a very strange way. I'm going to be honest. Hunter to IGL, Heavy God, and then the double sort of entry players in Mattis and MOUZ. But I'm excited to watch it. I think this could be a very fun team, a very explosive team, and they brought in one of my favorite coaches in Saw to try and make it all make sense. This is a team to watch, and I think as an underdog, they're in the right group as well. Not the right group. They're in the hard group as well, but I'm loaded here. I think one of these two makes it through that lower bracket, and I've got the 2 sides of the spectrum. I've got the tactic, the analytics, the thinking of GamerLegion, and I've got the let the kids run of G2, and I think that could be the way.
You got brain and brawn.
Exactly.
G2 is such a wild card for me. I mean, people saw what I said on the latest episode of Hot Take Point Made. I think that Saw has been, I think it's the best signing of the offseason. I feel he is going to set G2 on the right track for the future. Find that he's been an incredible and essential scout to some of the teams that he was on that found success, and all of them have practically found success. Let me remind people, I mean, getting ends to top 2 in the world with a Snappy that really usually kind of found himself capped. Thinking about past Snappy rosters before he worked with Saw, usually you'd kind of peak at maybe 8th to 12th in the world, and then doesn't really make the leap past that. Well, Saw was able to make Snappy's style work and refined it. He got a Sangol core who were practically onliners. If they failed to make the major, then they became the 12th best in the world themselves at one point. And also, let's not even, even to remark on the good heroic roster that he worked on, which made it to the quarterfinals, almost upset G2 at Shanghai. That was another underpowered lineup that he made greater than the sum of its parts. I find that what he's capable of is why I have hope for G2, but settle down. Settle down. It's a little too early for me. I'll see.
Never
I
too
think
early.
that
Never.
yeah, G2 will reap the rewards of enlisting Saw in the future, but I think he needs at least a couple months, 2-3 months, 3-4 tournaments, and then we're gonna see what Hunter's capable of as an IGL, what his true style is. And honestly, if Saw just tries to push everything he knows into Hunter, and then Hunter's able to bring that out live in a match, then we're cooking with gas at that point. But for the first tournament, too many moving parts for me. I can't put faith into G2 just yet. They have the firepower to take down a Fisher level event. I would love to see them in one of those kind of tier 1.5 tournaments, because then you could finally probably play your style all the way through and see the upside of it. But Furia opening round matchup, Furia's been on a bit of a heater. I think they're going to have a hard time dispatching of them, and then likely to be Astralis in the first round, lower round matchup. I think Astralis has been together for longer. They're going to be more. I'm going to go complete opposite on this one. G2 would be one of my picks if I had to for last place at this.
You watch. That's that opening game. I'm far from convinced on Furia still.
Okay.
You don't get to drop a FlyQuest map for free. Like, that just unacceptable. I'm not entirely sold. Like, that for me, that Furia team, I still love, obviously, some of the players on the roster. And I still think this is probably the best they've looked in, almost since COVID, really. Like, this has been a tragic roster of endlessly wasted talents. But catch them off guard. Honeymoon sweet spot, come out swinging. Loads of talented players. This is exactly the moment to try and gamble it. Next event, sure, I agree with you. We talk about the 3 months. We often give, fresh rosters, especially a new coach coming in to players he's never worked with. Yeah, he needs that time. But in terms of the perfect place to pick them to have that sort of honeymoon outburst, that's what I'm putting my faith on. That's where my chips are going. It's a big risk, but you have to get the underdogs through. With only 6 teams in playoffs, I don't know. I need that sort of truly wild energy.
There'll be one. There'll probably be one. I mean, I don't know if Group A can really go as expected, where it's just Vitality, Falcons goals. That'd just be too easy. So there's always someone that throws a spanner.
Well, yeah, the experts are not as high on Kyousuke, remember. As HLTV put it today. Not as high. Not as high on Kyousuke. He might be a bum.
They might all be bums. The collective bum agency.
Yeah, I think someone should just whisper in their ears, it's a major. Cologne's a major. Just watch it all fall apart. Perfect.
Next year they.
Yeah.
Spoiler.
Okay, so you've got still a favorite and an underdog to pick. You can go any direction with that. What do you like?
Sure. I'll take another favorite. Don't see any world where this doesn't work out for Spirit. First round matchup versus Heroic. That's good. Okay. I feel like I kind of maybe Nilo great. 9 months ago or something, but now I'm not getting the same juice from him, and I think Spirit still have all of it. The upgrade in Zwei on paper is going to help out. That's gonna lift their it's gonna lift their morale enough that they're going to breeze through this group stage. If you had to put it up to me for who I would say is the most likely to just win Group B, probably would just go with Spirit. Okay, you got, even though MOUZ are in the group as well, I just don't see why Spirit aren't going to use the little honeymoon they have to, in a seeding game at the end of in that upper final game, find a way to get the better of us. Even if MOUZ maybe in the playoffs flip the script, beat Spirit again, just like they did in Austin. But as of right now, they're trying to show the world that there's a reason that they cut their talent, that they cut the one guy with a shred of personality, and they got to prove to everybody Zwei is a. I think they got a little bit of a chip on their shoulder going into the season, and that's gonna fuel everybody on to perform at an even higher level.
Now, Spirit, it was funny to us because, a lot of us watching them were thinking, surely there's a way, firstly, you could play Kyousuke on this roster. Like, that was the whole narrative of last season, pretty much, start to finish. It's just, why isn't Spirit trying this? Then also, for those of us who actually watch Tier 3, you're watching Spirit Academy, and you're like, why isn't Kyousuke playing some slightly more off roles? Like, why isn't he trying to play the sort of Magic Zontics role? Why is my academy coach not implementing that? And that slowly became more and more obvious that really they don't want him in that top team. They purely see him as the Donk replacement. They could never imagine him playing Magic's or Zontics roles. So they just left him to not quite rot. They sold him to Falcons, made a good load of money, and he gets to play Tier 1 CS. Everyone's actually happy at the end of the day. But for us on the outside looking in, it seems strange. They did finally accept they need to make a roster move. Magic's lived for far too long on this team. That was clear as day. I mean, there's always, from a Spirit loss, you could just go to a Magic's POV and you could count, probably in a BO3, like 4 or 5 lost gun rounds where he's flubbed his lines. Like, he's had an easy fight. There's a perfectly winnable trade, a winnable 1v1, something that he could have just done, not even an insane sort of reaction shot or some crazy entry, just a normal trade kill. And he's just screwed it up, died, and the round falls apart. Bringing in Zwei, who's not only a player who has, at least in the limited time we've seen him at Tier 1, shown us outstanding mechanical consistency, hit great shots, found really impactful plays, but he's also, quite importantly, as we focus on that second part, he made plays. Like, he's taken risks, he's activated from his positions, he hasn't just sat back and waited for the game to come to him or waited for the perfect moment to finally swing. No, he's gone out, he's been assertive, he's made the right plays, and he's been impactful. So they're bringing in a player who's been a win condition, and that's been a key problem for this team, is having another win condition. It's Donk on his openings and potentially occasionally a trade or two if he's lucky. But then otherwise you're just scrambling. Like, who's going to step up? I need someone to go push the envelope, try something. Shiro sometimes does, and that's cool. Zontics very rarely, and when he does, he needs you to crouch. Like, he needs that opponent to crouch, otherwise he's dead. And Magic's is the good soldier. If Chopper's not telling him literally to go do something, I don't think he does. So that's kind of been the problem with Spirit. There's been a lack of second man stepping up. I don't know what. I think, did you say you were streaming with Magic's at some point, either today or yesterday? Like,
yes,
they had him on stream.
Today.
I'm sure you have some insight on all that, but for me, this was just a guaranteed improvement. Even if he isn't 1.20 rated or whatever the hell he put up on Nemiga during the major, even if he's just a 110 strong trader, wins a couple clutches, makes a couple little moves, that'll be huge for a team who's dying for that playmaking, like, rifler to come in and make something happen.
I don't think he's gonna be, if he's thrust into all of Magic's roles and has to drop the rifles to Dom to try to make way for the best rifler we've got, then Zwei won't be 100% of himself. But even if he's 20% of that, that's still everything. I don't even think the true challenge for Zwei is going to be coming in this group stage. I think it's really all about what they offset. If they beat MOUZ, for example, in the playoffs, then if they were able to beat MOUZ in the playoffs, then they've already got their money's worth on this guy. So I'm extremely, extremely hopeful on that.
Yeah, it's a team worth getting excited about again. And I think, I don't know where you sit on this, because there seems to be a major sort of rift in the scene between Chopper's fine as a caller, and Chopper is the worst caller I've ever witnessed. How could he not win everything with this roster? Now, based on your what you've said before about the players on this team, the individuals, I assume you're not quite to that extreme, but it seems to be a spectrum between those 2 points where everyone lies, with the fans quite clearly split at each extremity. Do you think this team could be better called? Is it time to ring Boomich?
Is it time to ring Boomich?
That's the one guy who always gets mentioned. It's always Boomich.
I think the realistic position for Boomich is on a team that's better than what he's working with now. I would like to see him make the jump from a Bet Boom more to a VP than all the way up to a Spirit. I don't know. I'll just say I don't think Boomich has actually earned a Spirit spot yet. I feel I've been incredibly high on him. I think I rightly outlined in history that he should have been the replacement for Nafany as soon as there were telltale signs that was doomed, that was no longer going to be progressing. But it was I can't say if today Boomich should be an IGL for a top 5 team. I saw bad calls. I saw bad calls from BetBoom during the major. I saw how they lost out 0-3 at stage 2, and yeah, they were able to make it through stage 1, even being a legacy team and an Amiga team who sort of punched up later on. But I can't quite give him that just yet. I'm gonna be a little bit more reasonable here. Not maybe not as a whole. Maybe I'm still gonna have some hot takes, but I'd love to see Boomich keep going up. But I just think I've seen some calls where it just feels rushed. Just you're playing, you have full guns, full utility, full everything, and there's a little bit too much leaping before you look. I'd want him to take a few more steps in some of these rounds, and maybe that's due to personnel that he was working with on BetBoom. That when you do stage the rounds a bit more in a bit more structured sense, they aren't delivering. That people are dying in situations that they shouldn't be, and maybe the Diladez for Axile replacement will alleviate some of those problems where Axile will just die on his side of the map for seemingly no reason. But I can't bestow. I can't give him the donk tool just yet. Like Boomich looked like he was at his best when he had 3 of the sharpest tools in the entire scene in Bit, Simple, and Electronic, and he had the best coach behind him in Blade. If you got all of that working towards you, it's almost difficult to fail. Now we've seen him with some adversity, be able to overcome that to a certain degree, make BetBoom look better than they did with Nafany. They like, again, with Nafany, no majors. They didn't get to any majors. He didn't even get to the Paris major, Nafany, with the Cloud9 roster before that. BetBoom was able, and Boomich was able to get the Cloud9 roster with no opper to the playoffs of Copenhagen. He was able to not only qualify for the most recent major, but get through a stage of it as well. So I've seen a lot. Like, he's definitely one of the best Eastern European in-game leaders we've got right now. But Spirit, I would say it's 60-40 Chopper for me today. And I don't say that lightly either. I've thought a lot about this.
Yeah, it's one of the things where if you live stream and talk about CS, you will get questioned on that once an hour, roughly. Like, it feels like someone's going to talk about Chopper, the IGLing situation. I mean, the latest sort of theorem that everyone seems to have concocted is Boomich steps up, knocks Chopper out. Lear comes from an Amiga, fills in on BetBoom, and then Chopper gets, I don't know, thrown out into the black of space. Like, I don't know. No one ever has a landing spot for Chopper.
Yeah.
But for me, for BetBoom, like, the Dealer-Des edition, I don't know if that's really going to change much as far as decision-making, but he is younger and therefore officially less washed, so maybe he'll hit more headshots. But he's been kind of off the radar for a while, Dealer-Des. Like, he's been stuck on Nine Panda's bench, so I'm not sure what kind of level he's going to bring coming into that team. But yeah, for Spirit, this should be good. This should work. On to myself, and I have only favorites left to select. And I think I'm going to first, before I start having to make awkward decisions, I'm going to go with a team I think is just guaranteed to make it out of their group. Just no questions asked, and I haven't even questioned them in this episode, because there is a pretty impressive team everyone's going to want to talk about, that we'll get to later, that I've already said I think might get upset in some sort of fantasy land. So I'm going to start with the one I haven't talked down to, MOUZ. I haven't said anything bad about them this episode, and I can't. How can you? After having watched this season they just had, replacing their IGL with a star rifler, moving the responsibility onto a guy who was just a rifler forever, it seems, and then not missing a top 4 for the rest of the season is absolutely insane in every sense. Like, to make that move, somewhat insane. To then make it work, crazy. Just literally crazy. And it's been fascinating how they've kind of done it in a variety of ways. They had this weird honeymoon where everyone was rifling super well. Like Spinks was sharp, Torji's winning aim duels against Spirit, and I'm like, bollocks to that. Like, there's 3 people on the planet who seem to interact with me who tell me Torji's a great rifler. My eyes say no, the numbers say no. I don't get it. He cooled off, then his AWP was really coming alive, and he's calling his own number on the CT side so well, like putting himself in great positions, opening things up. I'm assuming yapping and calling and telling Brolan what he's going to be doing and letting Brolan figure out maybe a little bit of everything else, because Torchi's that kind of AWPer. Like, he is creative, he is dynamic, he is aggressive on the CT side. And then the other side of the game, my lord, some of the mid rounds have been fantastic. And I'm not sure if that's pure Brolan, if that's Zershin and Brolan, if that's Zershin and Spinks and Brolan. I'm assuming Jimmy's just holding shift and tabbing out to Twitter, but that's his problem. Those guys, I think, have just done such a great job of winning unwinnable rounds time and time again on the T side, but also CT side. I think we've seen some of the best Spinks play since, I don't know, maybe since back he was on Ents. Like, he's been so great. He's had some really rough periods on Vitality in my eyes. Been fantastic on this team. Everything's clicking, everything's working. Sure, they don't have the superstar firepower across the board or in an individual to challenge for top 1 right now, but considering who they are as an org and considering the pieces on the team, this is as good as it gets. This is a team who are making playoffs, and as always, there's a chance they make the grand final.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit concerned about MOUZ. I noticed a worrying trend for them that the first 3 months with Brolin, their T sides were at a 55% win rate. That for the entire season, they were at a 50% win rate, which unfortunately means for the final 3 months, they were at a 45% win rate on T side. And the framework of what Shuhei created with Cyclone seems to be fading, and it's causing them to lose out on what is now an extremely difficult side of the map. I think that people underestimated just how much these economy changes were going to boost the CT side of really every map. But just in the first stage of Cologne, every single map now is CT sided except for Inferno. That's, to me, and it's by a very significant percentage too. It's not like there's no 50-50 map. In fact, the most balanced map is Ancient at 53%. And on what was already the hardest side for MOUZ, it just got even harder for them. I think they probably looked at their T side in the offseason. They considered how Brolin needed to step up in a couple ways, how they needed to design a couple new plays, but only a few of those are going to work. The natural process of integrating new strategies into your live playbook is arduous. It takes a lot of theory, a lot of crafting, a lot of research, and even dry running and testing in scrims to find out what even vibes with your players. So in what is already a huge test of trying to just figure out what works for you guys, you've now added another just way for you to lose the game on that offensive side, where it's just that the economy can get away from you and the CTs can start snowballing. I think MOUZ are in for a really difficult season, one that's going to show through what felt like a plateauing of their abilities. Can they actually break through a glass ceiling? I'm not sure if it's there. This is going to be an incredibly telling tournament for me, so I have much more trepidation when it comes to analyzing MOUZ or predicting their future here, because whereas everybody else went for upgrades, they are one of the teams that stuck still. And I'm even a little bit worried about what could be their second round game. If they play a Navi that upgraded in Mikaze, they've got some new life in their sails. They got some new wind in their sails, and MOUZ are just as static as they were before. I was really disappointed in a team like Navi, for example, last season, where it feels like, okay, you had a really great last season, but it sort of fell off. What have you got for this season? And nothing really changed. Nothing really got any better. I'm a little bit worried about a similar fate befalling MOUZ, but the one thing that they've got going for them, they're really young. They're really young. If there's any team that's going to be able to reinvent themselves, innovate, upgrade in terms of individuals getting better season to season, it's probably them and Mongols. So I'm still lightly optimistic for that reason, but I'm not so hopeful that they're going to come out here with a grand final finish. In fact, I would make the hard prediction right now that they'll finish in 5th, 6th at Cologne. So they'll. I'm saying that actually just to make sure that they don't get any points, and you don't get any points. So yeah, that's why I put that out there.
Yeah, of course. That would be their worst finish since the removal of Shuhei. And I think one of the key things that has been true for an annoyingly long time and seems destined to never change, but is always, in theory, an upgrade they could have, especially given their incredibly low opening pick rate on T side. Torji might magically start AWPing good on the T side. He might start taking more aggressive lines. He might start trying things. Hey, it's been a big if since he was on fucking Budapest 5, so it's been a while. But but if he is all of a sudden, had that confidence build, the IGL's gone, yet my CT side play, my calls are still mine, it still all works. What if I tried something on T side? It's there. It's open. It could always come true. So yeah, that's the long shot sort of magical upgrade. Obviously, otherwise, seeing a return to some more old school, last year, not really that old school, Jimmy form, maybe a few more clutches won, some more impact on that side. There are a few places things can get better. That's true. And despite everything, despite their low win rates, their overall round win rate has not been good that entire season. Yet they've constantly made those deep runs. I think that's something that always needs to be noted. They've played against the best teams in the world more than almost anyone. Just at all. And that's really tanked their round win percentages across the board. I think it feels like you look at it and you're like, oh, this is a mid as fuck team. You see the results, it's different. That's just because they're winning close, losing big. I still think there's a little deception in the numbers. I see them being a very strong team here, but look, you're right. Feel it out. New season, they didn't make any roster moves, other people did. Let's see if they should have. Your final pick is an underdog. Did you really like Liquid that much?
See, that's the thing. I feel like Group A is tough because, again, I already gone over the reasons. You know what? It's tough. It's tough. Is Furia on the table?
They're an underdog. Yep.
Yeah, is Furia on the table? I'll send it there. I don't believe in Liquid enough. I just don't believe in Liquid enough. They would have been the only other real underdog pick here. I think they can win their opening matchup versus G2. I think, in fact, whoever wins that opening matchup is going to be the only underdog with a chance to make it through Group A. I don't think any of the other underdogs are making that lower bracket run, as you'll eventually have to face probably either Falcons or Mongols. I think they're coming out of the lower final almost. Well, it's so tough to imagine anyone actually beating Mongols or Falcons when they go to the lower bracket. It's so tough, but for whatever reason, I think
I'm doing it right
Furia.
Now. Yeah. I can imagine it. I can imagine it. Involves Senzu crying. Yeah, he's crying. Yeah,
it's not a playoff. It's not a playoff match. Okay,
I didn't say he played badly.
To bed
just said he was crying.
Yeah, so I'll take Furia. I'll take Furia here, and that's mostly just because I have such a strong lack of faith in Liquid. I don't see Liquid making it out of Group B at all. I just can't imagine that world. I don't see any possibility. I don't know what universe I'd have to live in for that one to happen. Furia, on the other hand, Molodoi continues to inspire me. I consistently find myself just nodding my head like, yeah, this guy, he's got it. All right. This has been one of the most slept on signings. At the time when it happened, it was an incredibly slept on signing. What was your initial opinion of that? Because I imagine you had more thoughts.
I had been working on Prospects Molodoi for about a month because I'm a slow procrastinator leading up to the signing. And then as they sign him, I release the video. So in the end of the video, I do touch on some of my thoughts in terms of his next level potential. But the takeaway from Molodoi's tier 3 being generous demos, because I went back, I watched some Kazakh stuff. That's just
wow,
tier a million. Mostly for highlights, I was looking for clips, but still. He is a player who, and I think I described him perfectly in the video, he's that guy in your matchmaking game who is queued with 4 friends who are trash. And so he knows he has to win the round. Every round he has to win the round. So he's going to take the opening pick, and then he's going to wait for them to die and trade them out a bit onto the bomb site. Then in that post plant, try and get the 2 kills they need. He's going to be that guy. There's very little in his demos that was mid-round play. It was, I'm working an opening here. then I'm going to try and win it with my insane mechanics in the late round. For me, that, and then you saw in the rest of the demos as we went to Amcal and moved on, and there wasn't any like great like rotating as well. Like he didn't seem that active in terms of rotating around. His trade kills were really low, and you saw it in the demo. He's just perpetually solo. Like I've never seen a team do this, but on Ancient, he was playing Donut solo sometimes with an AWP, whilst they stacked the other bomb site because they needed every chance they could like take, really, like get everyone over there, let Molodoi cover everything else. And I thought that's going to be limiting as far as how he'll integrate into a tier 1 system. Then he shows up, I start watching him on Furia, and immediately I saw, I think, Fallen understood the limitations and did initially let him play some of that style, like kind of more solo, let him lurk lobby on Nuke. Like that was one of the big, like, you know, sort of lightning bolt, what the hell's happening here sort of moments where I'm watching him just lurk around lobby whilst everyone's doing other stuff. And I'm like, okay, they understand. His English probably a bit limited. His understanding of the tier 1 game still coming along. They're going to have to sort of let him do his own thing. And thankfully he is absurdly talented with every gun. And so you can kind of do that. So for me, Molodoi was a no-brainer signing mechanically. Just could he do the other things right? Could he rotate properly? Could he just be a presence and a trader when the team needed to finish as a group onto a bomb site? I knew if he was alive in the post plant, he'd win clutches. I knew if he was allowed to go take picks, he'd find picks. I knew when things go wrong and he needs to hit absurd combat shots to try and make up for, you know, player deficits or an unexpected rush. I knew he could do all of that. I just, on the majority of rounds, can he just do the basics that a team might ask him to do, like as a standard AWPer? I wasn't sure. It's coming along, and he's putting up the numbers.
And also, for whatever reason, everybody else has been completely serviceable in their roles.
That is the weirdest part of it.
Yeah, I know. That might even be weirder
also,
than
the rest of
Molodoi actually
Furia
making
is
a jump
playing
up.
well. Like,
Yeah.
Keserato's
Yeah.
good. Yuri's mostly good. It's very tilted at him in one demo I was watching. Yekendar's been surprisingly good. Like, it's all been kind of positive, and Fallen can play a support rifle. Fuck me, who'd have seen that one?
Who'd I know that's got to be one of the biggest shocks, where it felt like he didn't necessarily have the sickest numbers since he switched to it, but it's like, I mean, you've got practically 1 to 2 guys on almost every top 10 team who's putting up the numbers that Fallen has for the past 6 months since he swapped, or maybe it's like been 4 or 5 months, but either way, I mean, like, I'm not offended by his numbers. That's what I mean. You know, I'm not upset that he's doing this to Furia. Like, legitimately, he ended Austin, the actual major, stage 3 in the playoffs, with above a 1.00. That's absurd for a guy at his age, and to be swapping roles, to be playing bad positions, thinking about team first before himself, and to still not be a hindrance. That's got to be one of the most impressive career pivots of any. It's almost more impressive than for a regular rifler to become an in-game leader than for an op in-game leader to become a serviceable rifler while also still in-game leading. Because, oh my God, compared to somebody like Cadian, who tried to be this sacrificial MP9 rifler, SMG player mostly, that was terrible. That was legitimately one of the worst things I've had to witness in tier 1, where you just know it's over for you, buddy. Like, you're done. You're really just done at this level of play, or you've got to find a new situation at a lower level that suits what you're capable of providing a team. And I don't have to say that about Fallen. I didn't think it was possible. I really thought that Fallen was on his the Czech Seedling World Tour, and that it was never going to get any better. That at this point he was going to be laughing to the bank in Miami. And at this point, I'm like, wow, you're making something happen here in Fury, and you're making me believe in something and get excited about something I had no business getting excited about 6 months ago.
No, I assumed it would go horribly, and that's not just me being like kind of anti-Furia, you know, and not me being endlessly pessimistic. That was just, oh God, I've seen this literally about 6 months ago, and it was a disease that my eyes had to like be inflicted with. I can't watch it again. And Yeah,
Yeah.
surprisingly okay. Surprisingly fine.
Yeah. I mean, there's a handful of actual non-IGL players that are just doing worse
Worse
than
rated,
everybody
yeah.
on Furia. And that's just the biggest shocker to me. So no, I'm comfortable with that pick as my underdog. Kind of crazy that I got an underdog that was top 8 at a major, by the way.
Eh, Pain were
It
top
happens.
4. I don't.
That's true.
As I
That's
was
true.
reminded 100 times during this broadcast of stage 1, it's like, oh, major semi-finalists. It's like, please,
Hmm. Hmm.
please. Who did they play? Please
Yeah,
stop
true.
talking
That's
about it
true.
like that. So yeah, no, this has been a staggering turn of events. They're going to lose to G2, so who cares? Right, the final pick of the show. We're rounding things off with a favorite. It's one of those shows. We played it tactical. We were smart. We thought about it, and then we picked two underdogs from the toughest group. I mean, we really, there's levels, and unfortunately, mine was not that high today. But I'm going to take Falcons, just to rub it in that I've picked the wrong teams. I'm going to pick a team who are probably going to knock out both of my underdogs, but that's okay because they've got as good a chance as anyone to go and win this event after Vitality have been picked, obviously. But they also have a great chance to go and make a finals run if this edition works in the way I've kind of envisioned, in terms of how the Kyousuke edition does work. Because there are many ways it doesn't. Maybe he's unable to adjust to the roles. Not that he's going to have to adjust a whole lot. They're definitely going to play into his strengths. But maybe they do ask him to not move for 10 seconds in a round. And based on what I saw in Spirit Academy, he's allergic to not moving. So there's some things that could go wrong. But if it goes right, man, you're just talking about a raw aimer coming in and just being asked to just aim. there's so many things he doesn't have to do. If he touches a flashbang, I'm going to throw my cup at someone. Like, don't just let him go and aim at people. He's so good at it, and he's been that brilliant for going on like 2 years. I think we've been seeing him in the academy system, like maybe a year and a half. He needs to be at this level, and this Falcons side are going to be potent. They already were prior to this change, removing a Magix who towards the end was getting okay. Like Magix at the end, like there are some events where you're like, oh, his anchoring was okay. It's a shame his T side was diabolical, but the anchoring was okay, and you could kind of give him that sort of leeway. Now they're bringing a player who, at worst, will have a 0.8 KPR. It feels like he's going to be at worst that good. He's going to be impactful in every stage of the game. He's going to have an insane amount of value, probably in things like half buys, matching his obvious comp Donk, who, if you didn't know, this year has 100 ADR with a Deagle against full buys. Like, he's just absurd. This is going to be that kind of impact in my eyes. This is how Kyousuke is going to manifest. It's just going to be raw, mechanical fury, and everything else will kind of fall into place otherwise. I think Nico can construct around. m0NESY can bring things back in 2vx's should things go wrong. But man, so many things are going to go right that just weren't before. They'll have so many options they never could have imagined with Magisk on the roster. And this is going to be a very dangerous Falcons side.
It's hard to argue with it. I mean, I feel like the choke that we witnessed in stage 2 of Austin was a fluke in the wrong direction, and then they immediately alleviated some of the pressure on the star entries, star players, everybody. The burden has been lightened for the entirety of the crew because Kyousuke is just such a ridiculous force, a tour de force that has just been plowing through tier 2 for way too long in such a similar fashion to Donk that it like when Prof was it says a line about that Kyosuke is not as hyped as some of those other guys. I find a statement like that always just entirely subjective based off of how often you're refreshing social media and how much you're
Yeah.
even refreshing your own website with the sidebar visible. Because there was a thread about Kyosuke every time he played, multiple threads about him when he played. You basically couldn't go any 12-hour stretch on the HLTV website without seeing his name on the sidebar. I don't know how
Yeah.
many impressions people like Zaiwu or m0NESY or Donk got, but as the esport continues to grow, the fan base continues to grow, I can only imagine that Kyosuke's hype is as big in terms of gross impressions and engagements more than anybody else. I don't see how it actually could have gotten any smaller than the hype for somebody like ZywOo, where in 2019
Yeah.
people weren't as terminally online. People, the esport was simply smaller then. So I
Yeah.
don't think that there's just been now. The problem is that now the news cycle has gotten big enough, and there's enough contributors to it that there are several naysayers to and people that are contrarians to what is now recognized as almost a surefire pick in terms of how Falcons upgrading their lineup. So I don't buy that there is less hype for him. I think there
Yeah.
is a similar amount of hype. I think that is a poorly worded way of saying you don't believe the hype as much as maybe you believed it for some players that have already succeeded. I think he was going to succeed. I talking to Magix today, I mean, this guy has been praising him for such a long time. And sometimes you can't always tell with the facade that Magix brings, where it seems like it's got a layer of irony, like someone that read Hipster Runoff back in 2010, but really is honestly, he's very sure of this. I'm quite sure of this. There's not a single person who I've spoken to who's watched more than 2 games of Kyousuke who is against him being a sure star in even tier 1 as well. And frankly put, the transition from a tier 2 to a tier 1 rifler is not as hard as a tier 2 to a tier 1 opper. So what Monacy has done is probably, and Donk have done, and ZywOo for that matter, all 3 of those guys that Prof named, might be more impressive than what Kyousuke is going to be able to accomplish in his first 6 months. But I have no doubt it's going to make Falcons look good. And this is the first and probably only pick of yours that I think is a surefire way to score some points here.
That's fine. We'll see what comes out the other end. But look, for me, to return to that statement, I think it's somewhat revisionist, just because it's applying a modern view of academy players that didn't exist pre-Monacy. Like pre-Monacy arriving to G2, and even whilst he was on G2 early on, there were so many doubts, and people weren't like, sure, WePlay helped popularize the academy leagues, but that was just by putting them in front of the typical audience more than they usually are playing CCTs, Exort, the Proving Grounds, or whatever the fuck else in tier 3. Monacy, there was obviously a lot of hype, but I don't think it was comparable to the Kyousuke sort of conversation. Like, that was eternal and endless. And especially given that we had such a great frame of reference in terms of he's the next Donk. That shit was the easiest way to farm clicks I've ever witnessed. And I mean, literally free views. If you talked about Kyousuke, and now I have a soul, but that means I have a fairly small bank balance. I didn't, but the few times I did talk Kyousuke, just instantly free views. Like, it was that easy. Speaking of which, the title of this video will definitely include Kyousuke, and probably a picture of Kyousuke on the thumbnail. Just so you understand. Man's got to eat. But it's, yeah, it feels a bit ridiculous, and a bit almost, it feels a bit revisionist in terms of just the way academy sides were viewed and the players were hyped. Like, people were excited, but no one talked about Monacy coming out and being Donk in terms of relative impact numbers, that sort of thing. Like, that was not a part of the conversation. That was not part of the excitement. It never reached that absurd fervor that we have had with Kyousuke.
I did a Google Trends search of all of the names between Kyousuke, ZywOo, and Monacy, and I can now say with certainty Kyousuke was getting a lot more search in the last 6 months than ZywOo was in the 6 months leading up to his tier 1 debut. I'm not, there could be exterior factors for why the name Kyousuke is searched, but it has really,
it is also an anime thing.
It is, but it really didn't get that much buzz until January of this year. Even then, it got much more in January 2025 than it did, say, like September 2024, where it was very low, where it's quite low. But even if you look at something like ZywOo, right, leading up to him having his tier 1 debut in 2018 or 2019, it's not even, it's maybe threefold Kyousuke now versus then, even with the baseline level of Kyousuke searches that was always happening. So something for people to dig into themselves if they want to see engagement. But yeah,
Beach
I mean,
get us a graph. We need a graph. We need the
exactly.
graph.
We need some way to really search this. And with a name, I don't know, like a name like Kyousuke is also kind of relatively difficult to search. I mean, it's not even, you're not always going to spell it correctly. Zaiwu, I would imagine the spelling is a lot easier. So whatever. We're getting off topic at this point. Falcons are probably going to do well.
Yeah, what's the point of talking about Falcons if you're not talking about Kyousuke? I mean, I guess we can pretend he's not that hyped and just talk about, I don't know, Kicksan. See how everyone just left the video? Yeah, exactly. That's why we don't fucking talk about the rest of the team. As soon as I said the word Kicksan, nah, little X click. But yeah, realistically, this team should be very strong. I think I've got 2 finals candidates. I have 2 teams who, historically, are just going to beat Spirit, so got you there. But we'll see. This is a new Spirit. They have made changes. We don't know what the future holds. But yeah, I think we're going to leave it there. Not so much because there isn't anything else to talk about. There's plenty to talk about in terms of FaZe, Na'Vi, Aurora, Mongols, loads of storylines. It's just kind of late and a bit of an awkward time for me. So I'm gonna wrap it up.
That's fine with me. I've been in front of a camera for over 10 hours now, pretty much.
Yeah, so, I can imagine you're going to want to get off offline at some point.
Good for me. No, good stuff. I'm glad we got to hash out our thoughts. Are we still live?
Yeah, we're still
recording.
Still recording.
Okay, hell yeah. I mean, shout out to KingT. Shout out to Yumi. TOs need to put KingT on an event already, for God's sake.
Yeah,
for God's sakes, put this guy on.
My eternal complaint. I can't wait to be overrated because there's a lot of people who are underrated. Yeah.
No, don't get an ego from just what I'm saying though. Just once you get there. But you'll get there. So no, shouts out to you and the series, which is always an entertaining watch, which is why I wish I could make more time in my schedule to do it. I've wanted to in the past and had to pull out, but glad we got this one through.
Yeah, no, a pleasure to have you on as always. But yeah, if you enjoyed, leave a like, leave a comment, tell me your thoughts. If you want to be the new representative of the viewers, of the fans, make your case as well, because currently we do have one man in that sort of role. When we don't have a third person on screen, that does mean that the viewers technically do pick the teams. But yeah, sub for more content. Become a member if you want to support the channel and get access to new content. We do have now an interview with Onyx, IGL of TNL, who will be playing Tier 1 lands later this year. So I'm assuming all of a sudden people are like, who are these guys? Well, you would have known. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Goodbye.